By George, I've done it. It's the O Wrestling Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I am your host, CW. Make sure to hit that bell on YouTube and get notified when new videos go live and subscribe to the podcast. Today, we are talking about creative limbo for professional wrestlers, storylines, whatever have you. Whatever has you. That's neither one of those are correct, but we're going to keep going. I was reading some wrestling news and updates, and Alexa Bliss has been forgotten on one of WWE's posts about women who have changed the landscape of professional wrestling for the women's division, and they added in people like Piper Niven and Shotzi, who are honestly much lower on the card and newer on the roster than Alexa Bliss, and have done less for the women's division and the women's championship than Alexa Bliss has done. And it's obviously a little bit of a slight. As a designer, I understand that you can't put everyone on everything. If you're creating a graphic for social media, you only have so much space. You have to make concessions, but sometimes you have to prioritize. You have to build your hierarchy. And if Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair and Bayley and Becky Lynch are going to make the cut in the imagery, you have to then take a step down one level, which is the Asukas, the Alexa Blisses, the Shayna Baszlers, people who are Natalia. You have to look at those before you hit the next generation of talent, right? And if that's the case, you have to balance it out, right? You have to get your foundation right. You can't just leave someone like Alexa Bliss off. And I think a lot of that is because she is stuck in creative limbo. She is tied to this Bray Wyatt storyline that seems to never end and seems to swallow every talent that it touches. And I'm starting to believe the rumors that talent are trying to avoid working with Bray Wyatt because they get dragged into this spooky hole, and then it spits them back out, and they're worse than when they went in. Alexa Bliss is no different. She's been sort of pulled into this since a couple years ago when she worked the angle with Wyatt and I believe Randy Orton or whoever it was. And since then, she's been tied to this idea that she's, either she is Sister Abigail or she's, manipulated by Bray Wyatt, whatever the case may be. The initial run was interesting because The Fiend was part of it, but her weird murder clown Harley Quinn-esque character didn't really jive. And then she had some spooky goo powers, and then they gave it up. And then she comes back and she has this strange angle with Bianca Belair and Asuka, which I'm still confused about, where they were going for the tag team titles, and she was for some reason a lackey to Bianca Belair. It always felt wrong to have Alexa Bliss and Asuka following Bianca around like her cronies. So it was great when she broke free and she said, "I'm the one you have to worry about." And then they gave her a match which she lost decidedly. There was no question about whether or not she was the winner or loser of that match. And then kind of disappeared with the whole Uncle Howdy thing. So they stole agency away from her, with Uncle Howdy, popping up asking her if she believes she's in control. So now she has no control of her character or her senses or whatever. And then she's also losing these matches with Bianca Belair. They set her up to fail for that. And now she's not on TV. She's not on the road to WrestleMania. So now she's in this strange flux with creative where they don't know what to do with her, or they do know what to do with her, and someone on the upper hand is like, nah, that's not going to fly. So I feel bad for Alexa Bliss, and if I were on the creative team, which I'm not, but I am a creative person, I would have to pitch an angle that completely cuts her off from that sort of Bray Wyatt-esque thing. And I think they tried to do that with the therapy thing, and I think she was on board for that, and she finally got rid of that stupid doll. But now she's back to this I'm tied with Uncle Howdy thing, and that's going nowhere. So now she's going nowhere. She was not even on the same show as Bray Wyatt and that stuff. So again, I think Bray Wyatt is infecting way too much of WWE with his ridiculous stuff, and now he's messing with Bobby Lashley. He's he's effectively buried Alexa Bliss, and he hasn't even interacted with her on the show. So hopefully they can pull her out of this creative. I would for sure kind of get her back to her original kind of heelish championship persona. They have this angle with Nikki Cross wanting a friend and following around Candice LeRae, which I don't think is going to work, but it would work if she was following around Alexa Bliss. Alexa has a fantastic heel persona, and her taking advantage of sweet, crazy Nikki to kind of use her as a weapon to get her to the top of the division would work. They just need to get back to her being a bad guy. And they tried, and then of course they tried to make it spooky. She's not the only professional wrestler that is in creative limbo. Baron Corbin is another one where I don't think they've ever really known what to do with him. Even his lone wolf gimmick was not great. It was just there. Obviously I've mentioned before, Sad Corbin has been one of the better things he's ever done, but that requires a lot to get him back to that. And I think reprising that or reviving that would take a considerable lift. And they're trying to beat him down on TV, both physically and mentally, by making him seem like he's not worth it. So maybe Sad Corbin's coming back, or maybe he's gonna, turn into some absolute killer. Who knows? But I know that this money, I'm rich thing doesn't work. Bringing him on with JBL didn't work. He's in a weird place, and he needs something. The King Corbin angle was like his secondary, like this is a good direction for him. But then they made him throw dog food on Roman Reigns. It was just a weird thing. I'm going to mention Bray Wyatt again because I think he's in creative limbo. No matter how creative you think what he's doing is, it is definitely stalled out, and it's kind of just in flux. He's just sitting there, is like trying to make spooky videos, and again, now he's dragging Bobby Lashley into this, which could be interesting because Bobby Lashley is not the type of guy who is normally in these types of angles. So if he doesn't respond to Bray Wyatt's goofy nonsense, it would make the angle a little bit better because you'll see it from a different angle. LA Knight, when he was dragged in, he did his best, and honestly he was the face of that whole angle because he would come out every week, he'd be the mouthpiece, he got a lot of reps on the mic, and honestly in this household he got over big because myself and my daughter and now my infant son all do the LA Knight and we cut promos on each other because it was great television. We loved his promos. So he got over in at least our minds. But Bobby Lashley's not going to be able to pull off, the spookiness of it or whatever the mind games. So if he walks in there just with like, no, I'm going to grab you and I'm going to slam you around to kind of show that Bray Wyatt is just a guy, I think it would do wonders for both because the illusion has to be broken a little bit, right? Our suspension of disbelief has been taxed, I think, with LA Knight kind of getting really in on the joke where, the lights will go out and then some guy in a mask will come out and he'd get all spooked out and he'd be like, oh my God, what's happening? And he'd run around. But if Uncle Howdy were to come out, with the spinning finger and Bobby Lashley's in the middle of the ring, if Bobby Lashley doesn't rush that dude and slam him into like the Titantron and just beat his ass and throw the mask off and throw the guy into the audience or something, then what's the point? If he recoils in fear of some guy who's obviously smaller than him, my suspension of disbelief is gone. So while the creative is in a weird place, I think maybe now I'm going back on what I said. Bobby Lashley might be able to pull this creative out of the garbage and say, I'm not scared of you, and you're just a guy. I don't care how many video packages you make or how spooky your song is or how fast you can flip a light switch. I'm going to slam you and I'm going to slap on the hurt lock and you're going to be done. And then Bray has to actually wrestle this guy and win to prove himself. So who do you think is in creative limbo in WWE? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to tell your friends about the show and tell your mama too. And don't you ever forget,
I'm your friend, but if I ever see you in the ring, I can beat you. Don't you know? Yeah.